Welcome everybody to our webinar on our weekly SDP Connect Self-Determination Program Connect meeting. We are really thrilled to have all of you on today, even though it's like summer and holidays, but in COVID, nothing summer and holiday. So my name is Judy Mark. Most of you know me. I am the president of Disability Voices United, which is an organization directed by and for people with developmental disabilities and family members. We are also the people behind getting the self-determination program, self-determination law passed, a lovely 7 years ago now. So we have a very cool presentation today, but first let me just explain how this is all going to work. I'm going to do a presentation. This is a very different kind of presentation than we've done before. And first of all, I want to thank our amazing intern, Ishita Tripathi, who came up with the idea and actually implemented it. And unfortunately, can't be on the call today because she has another amazing activity to be part of. But she came up with this idea, and I think it's going to be really helpful. What we're going to do is I'm going to present these different parts of it, and then I'm going to ask you for feedback on these different parts. And the way that you're going to provide me that feedback is by raising your hand, not literally raising your hand, because there's so many of you, I can't see you all on the screen. What you're going to be doing is raising your hand on your through Zoom. The way you do that is you go down to participants. I'm just now a participant because Ed is our program assistant, is the host. So I'll give you an example. I'm going to go down to participants, and then I'm going to go up to where I see my name, and then I'm going to go raise hand. So then you will see next to my face a little hand raised, and that way I can keep track of who wants to speak, and it does it in order. Okay, and I will do that in order for those of you who I don't believe we have anybody who's just on the phone, so I don't think we have to worry about that. Everybody is using the Zoom. They're on a computer or the website in some way. So let's get started, and I hope you will enjoy this. So I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to start. Hold on. You know what? Oh no, that's fine. So we're going to start with, let me go to, hold on. I have to go slideshow and then play from start. Okay. So what we're going to be doing today is brainstorming ideas for your spending plan, because a lot of people say, I don't know what to do. I don't know creative ideas of how to be part of the self-determination program. All I can think of are the same old things that we've always been doing. Or as you're creating your program, you're going back to the same mindset that you've been in the traditional system, which is I have to be in a day program, or I have to do this group situation, or I have to use behavioral therapy or respite. There's no such thing as behavioral therapy or day programs in self-determination. People are building lives, and you're not in a program. I've told this story many times, but when I talk about the self-determination program and I give presentations, I use my son as an example. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to get it to go backwards. There we go. I use my son as an example, and my son, and I'll say, oh, my son wants to start a business, or my son wants to join this drum group, or, whatever. And they say, and I inevitably get a parent coming up to me and saying, oh, what program is your son in? I want my son to be in the same program. And I'll say, my son's not in a program, he has a life. So go out, have a person-centered plan, and create a life. And we really have to get out of that similar mindset. So this is an exercise that we've come up with, which will help you think through how to create a new life, okay? So we're talking about, so Ishita, who's our great intern is actually going to med school. And so she, of course, thinks about things through the human body. And I thought this was a great idea for us to think about what our needs might be. And what your goals are and what your hopes are. Remember, we talk in self-determination about what is important to you and important for you. Unfortunately, so much of what we're faced with as people with disabilities is what's important for you. It's like, you have to have behavioral therapy and you have to learn this independent living skill, and these are important things for you. You have to eat healthy and you have to exercise, as opposed to things that are important to you, like going to Disneyland, seeing movies, all the things you actually can't do nowadays during COVID. But these are things that are important to you. And your person-centered plan should be 3/4 important to you and 1/4 important for you. Okay, so starting to do some brainstorming. And I'm realizing I want to just make sure that I can see, as we're doing this, the participant list. Yeah, I will be able to see as people raise their hands. So this is good. So we started thinking about mobility and the sort of lower extremities of your body, and thinking about what are needs that would make you happy, that would make you be able to participate in community settings, thinking about your feet, thinking about your legs. So some of the questions you might ask are there special shoes you might require? I'm not sure who's on. Are Fernando or Elizabeth on the call today? I don't see their names on the participant list. Okay, so hopefully they won't mind me giving this example. So we went for a hike with their families, physically distant hike over the weekend. And they have a wonderful son named Oscar Antonio who has Down syndrome, and he has particularly wide feet. And he was having a really hard time on this hike because his shoes were really hurting him a lot. Oops, I just went to the next page. Sorry. They said that they talked to the doctor, they talked to the children's hospital, and they're like, there's nothing we can do for you. And I said, well, I have this great foot doctor who creates shoes that fit any feet, regardless of the size, the width, anything. And that's a great thing you can put in your self-determination program spending plan, because they're pretty damn expensive, but they will enable him to participate in his community more. And they thought that was great. So that's an example. Other examples, like, are you ambulatory? What are your needs that you may have requirements? Let's say you need a walker, you need a second wheelchair, you need special special things for your wheelchair that make it your own, like the seat, or one of our board members uses an iPad at the base of his wheelchair. Are there customized things you need in your home to get your wheelchair in and out of it, or in your vehicle? So those are the kinds of things you can put into your spending plan. So I'm wondering, if you raise your hand, if anybody has any ideas that you want to share with others, so that so people can brainstorm some ideas around this area. And if you don't, that's okay. But if you do, go ahead and raise your hand and I will call on you. All right. People don't seem to think that they have any need. Oh yeah, yay, Christina, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you, Judy. I was just, as you were talking, I was thinking, because we are hopefully will be going out into the community eventually, if not now, but something that would help protect, whether it's if they're a wheelchair user, maybe something that would go over the wheelchair, or something, a sort of umbrella, some sort of sun protection that might be needed being out in the community.
That's great. That's a great idea. I love it. Thank you. Lori Shepherd.
Hi, I'm thinking maybe for people who are into sports and use wheelchairs, a customized sports chair, or maybe a beach chair with those big fat wheels.
Yeah.
Those are not covered by Medi-Cal, so generic resources don't work.
Oh, I love it. Great ideas. Great ideas. Okay. So let's move on to the next part of the body. So we're looking at your hands, we're looking at your arms, the things that you need to use for your daily living for your daily living. Things like cooking, hygiene, laundry. Do you have any need for someone to assist you with those or to teach you those? Do you need assistance receiving food or groceries? Helping you either doing your grocery shopping for you or helping you learn how to do grocery shopping so that you can be more independent. Do you need any tools or accommodations to help you hold or reach items? Whether you're perhaps don't have use of your arms in the way that you would want, and you could rebuild your kitchen in a way to be able to have your cabinets at a lower level. I mean, these are things you can use. There's actually a section of the self-determination waiver that we have, the contract we have with the federal government, that actually allows you, when you move to a new home, to change your home, including cabinets, so that they're lower for you, or that you have the ability to open them automatically, or whatever your needs are. So I'm wondering if anybody has any sort of ideas in this area that we haven't thought about that will help you with sort of things that you need to reach, things that you need to prepare. Just put your hands up. I just thought of one other thing, by the way, for mobility, is that you can pay for Uber and for Lyft and for taxis with your self-determination program. You don't always have to be going in your paratransit or your free transit systems. Nina, go ahead and unmute.
Okay, so here's a quick question. This is on the daily living. If a person has an issue with, like, whether it's a sort of a compulsion thing or just a constant happening, like a problem with glass and breakable objects, could you, like kitchen stuff and just generally everywhere that you would have things like plates and kitchen equipment that to replace all glass kind of things with plastic or something unbreakable?
That's a phenomenal idea. I love it. Great idea. Tammy, Polly?
Okay, service dog. Because we've gotten service dog equipment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely, service dog. So we've done that.
I love that. You know, there are service dogs out there who provide a range of services for people with developmental disabilities, from actually fetching things for you and helping you open the door, to detecting seizures, to being a companion. And that is a great idea to put in the self-determination budget. Christina, you have another idea.
I had one quick question and then an idea. With regards to the transportation, can we put in there for family members to also drive around, or it has to be non-family members?
So in the self-determination program, if you are if the participant is a child under the age of 18, a family member can provide the service with the exception of their parents. So their parents cannot be paid staff to provide that any service. Okay. When the participant is over the age of 18, the parents can provide the service, but the spouse cannot. So if that participant is married, their spouse cannot provide the service.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then the other thought I had is we're using a lot of grocery shopping online and an iPad. If they don't have anything, could that fall into this, or for access to, order?
So you cannot pay for food. You cannot pay for the actual groceries. You could pay for a delivery service to bring you the groceries, but most places right now are providing free delivery. So that there is a restriction in the federal government waiver for self-determination that it will not pay for rent or food. So that is a restriction.
Okay, thank you.
Lori Shepherd.
Okay, you also have somebody in chat asking a question after me.
Okay. Thank you.
So one of the things that I was thinking was the rolling carts that, you know, grandmas take to the grocery store to help bring their groceries. And then, well, I mean, there's so many accommodations for like physical disabilities, one-handed can openers, things like that. Oh man, I had a whole list, but then I wasn't paying attention to my own brain. Oh, would a front load washing machine qualify?
I don't see why not. It's, I don't know. Are there any?
Because
That's
if
a
you
tough
can't,
one.
either because you're too short, you can't reach, or because of your gait or something like that, you can't reach to the top for some reason. It might also be that you can't open a front load sideways either. But would changing out an appliance for a physical accommodation that has to do with your disability, would that work?
To me, it would. To me, I would say yes.
Okay, but now answer the question.
So there is a question in the chat, which actually relates to buying something like a washing machine, that asks, I hear a lot of one-time durable purchases mentioned. Don't those reduce the budget? I know when I buy a durable product in life, it doesn't reduce my income. And when I get paid again, I may want to buy a different durable item to improve my life. But I heard this is not the way the self-determination program works. Can you speak to this, Judy? Yeah, so this just came up recently as an issue that we need to be thinking about. So remember that your budget is based on your last 12 months of expenses. That's the bottom line. It's based on the last 12 months of expenses that can be changed up or down based on, remember, or down based on a change in needs, circumstances or resources, okay? Including unmet need. So the way that the first initial budget's being looked at is that that regional centers are being told to look at one-time purchases, and that to reduce the budget based on one-time purchases. And those one-time purchases are things like a van modification for a wheelchair, a home modification for the wheelchair. So the question comes in, I mean, those are really obvious. And this came up last week at the SDP Connect call. The question is, if somebody buys a computer or something, or even a washing machine or an iPad, is that considered a one-time purchase? And therefore the next year when you have a new budget, will your budget be reduced because that's not considered an ongoing expense? And I really have to say that we don't know where this is going to come out, and we should be pushing the envelope on this and testing it out. I think that you have to make the case every year for unmet need and for a change in circumstances. So let's say you bought an iPad this year, which the regional center could make the case, you don't need a new iPad every year. And really, for most people, that's very true. And so they would want to reduce your budget by the $400 for the iPad. But you may be an individual that is pretty rugged and you are taking your iPad everywhere and your iPad drops and it gets cracked. And so really you'll need a new iPad every year. So that's how you'll make that argument. But if you are not needing that iPad every year, then it is possible that regional centers are going to say you need that, it will be reduced. So one of the things you're going to have to do is to be very, for those things that are one-time purchases, don't not buy them because you may have your budget reduced the next year. In fact, you may not need it. You may not need as much of a budget next year. Remember that self-determination is not about getting a high budget. It's not about getting the most money you can make, you can get. It is about meeting your needs and helping you meet your hopes and dreams. It is not about milking the system of every dollar. My son got a lovely budget. I would not say it's a huge budget. He got a nice budget. I'm going to guess that he's not going to spend anywhere close to that amount of money in this year because of COVID, because of so many things that he has in his budget that are community-based that he will not be able to participate in. So his budget is going to end up being lower. We're going to look at what's been spent in the past year, and we're going to have to make the case, well, yeah, but that was an exceptional year. It was a different set of circumstances. And this year, hopefully next year will be safer and we can be out and about and we can spend the budget in the way, you know, that we want to. So this is where we're going to have to really continue to push, and that we're just starting this fight with on ensuring we get a budget. There's a couple more things in the chat, and then I'll go back to people's comments. For living skills, some supervision for cooking, accommodations as reminders, supervision, visual tools, time management, modeling how to do it. Great ideas from JJ, and because and that is, you know, hiring an individual to help you do this, these kinds of things, to be able to live a really great life in your home. Lori Shepard remembered what she had forgotten, and that is smart home devices. I know she actually, if you ever want to hire anyone to help you with this, Lori Shepard is amazing at this. She is helping my son with this. And Lori really knows that there's all these devices that help you, you know, remember to do things, stay on schedule. But also the other thing you can, by the way, pay for with self-determination is a home security system. So it may be a security system that is because you are worried about your safety in your home, or you may have a child who elopes a lot and who runs out the door, and you can put in a system where alarms and bells ring when the door is opened. So these are things that there is actually a very specific item within the list of services that specifically talks about that. So thank you for reminding me of that. And cooking classes, yes, Christina, cooking classes would definitely fall in. Anne Hare. Hi, Anne.
Hi, Judy, thanks. So just going back to transportation, and a comment also about the service dog, we did use our funds to purchase a dog who's in training now, particularly for my son. But we were told that was a once in a lifetime purchase. In other words, we couldn't put that back on his plan for the future, which just as an FYI.
Well, just to correct, you can't put it on probably while you still have this dog, but let's say this dog retires. I mean, service dogs do retire. They get a little tired of it, and they're usually not that old. It's usually they're like 6 or 7 years old when a service dog retires. So in 6 or 7 years, you may need a new service dog. So it's not like once in a lifetime. It's just you can't use that money for next year for that purpose, but you may be able to make the case of a need that is new that you didn't have this year.
Couldn't agree more, which is why I was surprised by their reaction to that.
Remember, regional centers are not accustomed to not controlling us. They're accustomed to being in charge. And so we have to educate them.
That's correct. And then another question I have, my son has caregivers who come from some distance. One lives they're about 2 hours away, but they only come on weekends. And my question is, I know mileage can be paid, but can they restrict the number of miles it takes for an individual to get there? And for one who does not drive, can you ask for Caltrain or Amtrak cost to bring that person?
You can, if you're staying within your individual budget amount, that is absolutely something that you could put in there. Absolutely. I mean, regional centers are not supposed to be nitpicking your spending plan. They are looking at just a few things. Number one, are you risking your health and safety? Is the participant in some way risking their health and safety? That is the number one job of regional centers. And I'm going to guess that almost nobody is putting something in their spending plan that risks their health and safety. Number two, are your services in settings that are integrated into the community? So you can't be using your funds for really segregated programs or living situations. And number three, it has to be able to fit into one of these federal waiver services. There are 26 pages of services, and one of them is called participant directed goods and services, which is basically everything that was not in the other 26 pages. And there are some items that you cannot pay for. And I told you that. Food and rent are two of those that the federal government says you have to use generic resources for. So that is going to be relatively strict. But other than that, they shouldn't be nitpicking your spending plan. Oh yeah, there's also the issue of generic resources. I should mention that. So I've said this in some of our previous STP Connect calls. They should absolutely not be calling you out on generic resources. Generic resources, you should be thinking about generic resources as a coupon. It's like, wow, if I could get this for free or for cheaper, I'm going to use the generic resource first before putting it in my spending plan. And so therefore, if they come at you about generic resources, you should be able to say, yeah, oh, believe me, I love generic resources. That helps me stretch my budget and my spending plan. Are you kidding? Of course I love them. But let me tell you why generic resources won't work here. And I'm not asking to expand my individual budget. I'm not asking for any more money. I'm going to spend my money this way. I have been hearing at many regional centers that people are being told that they cannot spend money in their spending plan in a certain way because it's supposed to be spent by generic resource. That is not what the regional centers are supposed to be doing. And I can tell you, and Connie Lapin can confirm this, that back in 2014, when we started meeting on a regular basis with DDS, this came up early. This came up as a conversation. I remember it like it was yesterday. Marty Emoto said, I'm really worried that generic resources are going to be used as an excuse for people not to be able to get their services that they want and need. And so that prediction has come true. And so we have to fight back on that. A little trick, if you're being told about generic resources, little trick for you is that call it something else. So an example is a friend of mine in his spending plan is going to see a psychologist to help him with something that is going to be practicing hypnosis. And he was told by his regional center, oh, that's a generic resource. Medi-Cal should be paying for that. Except that this therapist who has a very specialized practice doesn't take Medi-Cal. And so he knows he's not going to be able to find a Medi-Cal rep. He's not asking for his budget to be expanded. So we called it stress reduction and meditation advice or something like super vague like that. And it got passed. So just don't call it behavioral therapy, call it employment coaching or, pre-occupational skills. Don't call it education or tutoring, call it communication support or something along those lines. So be very strategic on what you're calling things, okay? All right, Kim Watson. Hi, Kim, how are you? Good to see you.
Hi, everybody. Nice to see you too, Judy. The transportation thing just had me spinning because I'm currently talking to Premier that handles all our budget stuff, and the young lady's been great. However, because of COVID, all camps have stopped and everything. Right. So we've engaged someone, some close family friends, young ladies, who are hanging out and taking my son around. It's like a private camp. And so it's wonderful. It's super great. They do something every day. He loves them. He's got crushes on both. So
and it's great. And a lot of people are out of work right now. So this is very helpful, giving them a little bit of extra money.
Yes. So, but when I inquired about transportation, I was told that if it wasn't specifically in the IPP or the spending plan, that their transportation to and from activities would not be covered. And this didn't come from regional center. Our person at Premier spoke to DDS and was given that instruction. So
So change your spending plan.
how, yes, that's what we're trying to do, but everything seems.
So my son entered the self-determination program on June 1st. Well, it went backdated. So let's say he entered on June 7th, and on June 8th, I already changed his spending plan within 12 hours.
Okay, okay. Well, there you
So
go.
just change it. Add in transportation.
Yeah, and it's just that simple?
Yeah. And so what is it that your son needs? He needs like the gas paid for, the mileage. Is that it?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
exactly. And
Okay.
is that just something that we do, or we obviously have to get that signed off on by Caesar and whoever?
So it depends on how much you're talking about. You're allowed to, so
Minimal.
transportation is its own category. And so there's only 3 categories. There's community integration, which most everything goes into. Transportation, no, transportation is not its own category.
No, it's not. It's built within like community access or something.
Integration. So all you're doing is moving things. So if all you're doing is moving things around within community integration, you just have to tell your region, your FMS. You do not need to tell your regional center or DDS. So I'm curious why Premier said
They
DDS
seem
would
to be
be-
going to DDS for every little move.
Yeah,
And
I've been
that's
seeing
where
that.
it kind of falls apart.
Yeah. You shouldn't have to, Kim, I don't know if you have my email address, but copy
I do.
me on all the communication and I'll weigh in
Thank you.
when they kind of go off track. But Caesar should know this too. You shouldn't be having any problems with Caesar on this.
No, he's been great.
Okay.
He's been great. It's been between DDS and the
And
FMS that
Okay.
getting this directed. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Good to see you. Lori.
Yeah, just to reply to that, I just went through the same thing with somebody. It's pretty easy to do. You just say, I want to move a certain number of dollars, whatever it is, a couple hundred or whatever, from this category to transportation. A lot of families are forgetting to put transportation costs in when they do their first spending plan. And so it seems to be pretty common that we're having to go back and add that in. You just pull it from somewhere else, toss it into there, but they can't pay it if it's not in the plan. So it's not Premier being a pain. It really is. If it's not on the right line, they can't pay it.
Right.
And so I have a case where they, like, staff are owed about 3 months of mileage right now, but we finally got it, you know, met with the regional center, got the spending plans changed, and now they can go back and back bill for those 3 months.
Wonderful, thanks. Just a couple comments. Maria's asking when the self-determination program will start for everyone. It's going to definitely go statewide on June 7th, 2021. So that's less than a year from now. We were hoping it'll expand to people on the wait list before then. DDS doesn't seem to have any interest in that, unfortunately. Linda saying it's also good to know that all expenses for a service dog, including food and vet bills, are tax deductible. Well, it's tax deductible if you're paying for it out of your own pocket. It's not tax deductible if it's coming from your spending plan. We did the same thing and called group therapy socialization. You can also cover transportation by paying the person more. Okay, so these are separate ideas. So yes, that's another thing that you can think about, Kim, is that instead of if you don't want to have a line for mileage, you can just pay the staff person who's driving your person around an extra amount of money per day, which should pay for their transportation. So that's another easy way. All right. And Tammy is saying that she got all expenses for service dog, insurance, food, and grooming covered in the SDP plan. Wonderful. Christina, go ahead and unmute.
Thank you. I have a question about nursing services and how it's, I've heard different things from different people. How can we pay nurses more than what they're getting through an agency through self-determination?
So you can negotiate any amount. So you can, it really depends on the agreement that specific nurse has with their agencies, because some nurses cannot be hired privately outside their agency. So that has nothing to do with self-determination. But if you are able to hire a nurse directly as opposed to using an agency, you will be able to pay them more, and I promise you it'll end up costing less, because these agencies all take an administrative fee. And so, for example, you may I don't know nursing rates, but let's just talk about respite, which is a similar kind of administrative thing. So
Nursing,
for respite, the hourly rate might be $23 an hour, but the person getting paid may only be getting paid $14 or $15 an hour. And that extra money goes to paying for obviously liability insurance and the employer's share of taxes, but also an administrative fee for the agency to be providing that. Which they deserve. I have no problems with that. It's just if you are hiring people directly, then you're not having to pay that administrative fee, and you can put that extra money into paying them a higher hourly rate.
okay. And just FYI, so there is something called an independent nurse provider that I recently learned about, where they can apply to be in, basically they get paid by Medi-Cal directly, but you know, it's tricky with the generic resources. That's where we get hung up, because would those then come out of that budget, or would that money not be in the budget at all then? Because like if my son's on the HCBA waiver, so he will go off the waiver, be on the SDP waiver. So then could he still do the nursing through the like independent nurse?
Through Medi-Cal, sure, absolutely. You want to, if Medi-Cal is going to pay for nursing, you should have Medi-Cal pay for nursing. So you're saving the SDP budget for other things that Medi-Cal doesn't pay for.
Okay, so, but I thought you could only be on one waiver, correct?
Right, but the SD waiver allows you to still get nursing through Medi-Cal.
Okay, so it would fall, the nursing would fall under the self-determination waiver.
Right.
Okay, okay, all right, thank you.
Absolutely. Eunice, hi Eunice. Go ahead and unmute yourself. I see your hand raised, Eunice, but I can't hear you.
Wait, I'm mute.
There you are.
Hi. You see me? Yes.
Yes, I don't see you, but I hear you because I have
Okay,
the screen
good.
on. So.
I have a question which is kind of important about the person-centered plan when you invite the people the staff that already are working through an agency with my granddaughter. If you invite them to be part of the person-centered plan, will that endanger their job with that agency, with the agency they are going? Will that be grounds for them to terminate them for participating in the person-centered plan?
No, are you having issues with that?
Well, you know, I just asked because we're going to have a person-centered plan pretty soon, next week or so. And I asked the girl that is being working with Jasmine for about 12 years. I asked her and she told me, oh no, I say, I'm going to give you the email of the person so he can invite you. It's through Zoom. And she said, oh no, because I'm going to be fired from my agency if they find out that I am doing this. And I say, what? Why?
I mean, that's obviously.
And then she said, for HIPAA, she said. And I say, but I am authorizing you.
Nothing to do with HIPAA. My husband is actually an expert on HIPAA, and that has nothing to do with HIPAA. HIPAA has to do with the healthcare setting. Having a person-centered plan has nothing to do with HIPAA, and you've been invited by the individual to sit and have this discussion. So that obviously overrides everything. But that's not an issue with self-determination. That's clearly an issue between that individual not trusting their agency or their agency not trusting that individual. So I would definitely call the supervisor. And, you know, a person-centered plan is about the individual and their hopes and dreams. It has nothing to do with, you know, any private issues unless that individual wants to talk about it.
Well, it's because probably the idea that I you know, it's very hard to find trusted people that work with my granddaughter, especially when she's nonverbal, and you know, to learn so many things for all her body movements and you know her body language, all her ways of communication. I've been working very hard with the three of them, and I plan hire them with us.
Yeah, well, that could be, that is a different, yeah. I mean, that has nothing to do with HIPAA. What I would do is, if you have information about person-centered planning, there's tons of information on the DDS website on it.
Okay.
You could forward it to them so they understand what a person-centered plan is, so that it's not something where people are talking about like their health care and their medications. Medications should not be a topic of conversation in
Exactly.
a person-centered plan.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm gonna move on just because we're running out of time. Connie?
Okay.
Oh, I just want to say there is a fear factor with staff that has nothing to do with HIPAA and has to do with certain providers not being open to this. And I don't know what your granddaughter's relationship is in terms of her staff. They obviously know that she's working with your granddaughter, but maybe the staff has some issues. I mean, this makes me sad to hear this. Makes me sad to think that somebody should be afraid, but I do know about trusted staff. They're the most valuable thing in the world.
Right.
And so I think maybe you need to, it's not a valid reason, except it may be for her. So maybe you just say, look, I want you to share my granddaughter's support plan, and that's what this is, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But it may be more because of the provider.
Right. Okay, I'm gonna move on to the next body part.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so now we are looking at the torso. And so we were thinking about exercise, nutrition, what keeps people healthy, what makes it so that people are motivated to be healthy. It's not just about what's good for you, but also what's important to you. So, you know, maybe you want to be able to ski. Maybe you want to be able to ride a bike. So you can think about, I don't know if any of you have been to Mammoth or to Big Bear or Lake Tahoe. They all have adaptive ski programs, which cost not a lot of money, but maybe $50 every time you go skiing. You can put that into your spending plan. There are also lots of other activities that you can do. You could also join a gym. You could hire a nutritionist. I can tell you that in my son's spending plan, he has both of those things. He has a personal trainer that comes to our house every Wednesday for 30 minutes. He just had it right before this call. And we're going to have a nutritionist really work with us as his parents on how to think about ways to get him to eat healthier. You may need special food preparation. You cannot buy the food, but if you need somebody to help prepare it, like let's say you're gluten-free and you like to bake your own bread, but that's just not something you can do on your own. You can hire somebody to break it and pay their salary or pay their wage to bake you gluten-free bread, or cooking lessons, as we had talked about before. So does anybody have any ideas related to this kind of thing that's not here? Hold on, I need to get up my participant list. Oh, I didn't mean to do that, sorry. Oh, participants, there you are. Nina.
I would just highly recommend dance classes. Just regular old dance classes at a local studio are super fun. And that would, I'm sure that should be covered, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great idea, Nina. Other ideas anybody has? Oops, I keep doing that because when you're leading this, you can't see the top of your screen. There we go. Swimming for core strength. Yes. Also in my son's person-centered plan, or my son's spending plan, is swimming. But right now all the community pools are closed. But when they reopen, he will go back to his swimming that he does for exercise as well. Eunice. You unmute yourself, Eunice.
Okay, I'm sorry. She goes to Taekwondo one-on-one.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And it's great because she's learning. Being autistic is very hard, for your brain to communicate with the rest of your body. And it's great because now within a year and a half that she's going, that helped her a lot, and she's learning how to move and how to do the steps with the instructor, and the instructor is wonderful. Will that be also used? Can I use that in as being paid, because I pay for that?
So let me be clear though, that you can, that any of these kinds of activities work as long as it's not in a segregated setting. So for example, there's programs here.
This is one-on-one.
Which are dance programs just for people. It's like Up with Downs, I think it's called. And so it's like a lot of these really wonderful young people with Down syndrome who are in like a dance troupe, and it's not integrated. So that is not going to be able to be paid for. But if you join, as Nina was saying, a regular dance class or a typical Taekwondo class or a typical karate class, those would, or by the way, one-on-one. So my son gets personal training by an agency that supports people with disabilities. However, his training is one-on-one and it's in our backyard. It still works because that's a setting. Our backyard is an open.
Right. How did you find somebody to be a personal trainer, like up here in the valley, in the Antelope Valley?
You know, we found this personal trainer because he works for an agency that does recreational programming for people with developmental disabilities. And that's what they do. There may be one out in the Antelope Valley as well. I'm not sure. Maybe somebody might know of one.
Okay, I will look into that. Thank you so much.
Sure. Someone's asking in the chat about a nutritionist covered by Medi-Cal insurance. It has to do with health. So once again, if you can find a nutritionist covered by your insurance, that's great. I can tell you that my insurance, we have private insurance, and our insurance does not cover nutritionists at all. So that was not even, and by the way, the nutritionists generally need to work directly with the participant, and we did not want that because my son didn't respond well. All we wanted was a couple of consultations with a nutritionist to work with my husband and me to figure out how to do meal planning, how to do meal exchange so that he's not eating cheeseburgers and French fries every meal, which is what he wants to do. So we're looking at it in a kind of a different way. So always try to look at your generic resources as a possibility. But I'll give an example of a story I just heard this week of a child who desperately needs speech therapy and private speech therapy outside of the schools, and has not been able to get a Medi-Cal paid for speech therapist for 3 years. 3 years they've been trying, and it's trying to get it in her spending plan. And the regional center is saying, no, you have to use generic resources. And she's like, I think I've been trying for 3 years. But she's never gotten an official denial letter. So we need to be able to make the case that it's denial by delay, that even though you are eligible for it, if you're not receiving it and you've been waiting 3 years, you should be able to get it. And I actually encouraged them to just call it something different. Just don't call it speech therapy. Just call it something different, and it'll be much easier. David Oster, did you have an idea? You need to unmute yourself, David.
Could it be advocacy?
Hi, David.
All right. Hi, Judy. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Could it be obstetrician services?
What kind of services?
Obstetrician services. I looked in the book. It says advocacy services in the book.
Advocacy services. Yes. So advocacy services. So advocacy services are things like hiring an advocate to come with you to your IEP, or an advocate to try to get you on SSI, or to get you on Medi-Cal, to access generic resources. An advocate can also be used to help you argue for a change in your budget, or to support you, through your IPP process. So an advocate can be used in multiple ways.
Thank you.
Terracell from GT Independence.
Hi, Judy. I just wanted to make a comment when you were talking about the nutritionist.
Yes.
One of the things under the self-determination program service description, community living support, does talk about help in the home with preparing meals, eating healthy. So as you said earlier, you wouldn't call it a nutritionist because then that would fit in a nutritional consultation regarding Adrian's comment, but it's just the family being creative in their terminology. And I just wanted to echo what you stated earlier.
Right, right. Because remember, we're not asking for our budgets to be increased. We're asking for the choice and control and authority to be able to use our budget in the way that we think is going to meet our outcomes better. All right, I'm going to keep going on to the next one. So vision, hearing, and communication. So you may use augmentative or alternative communication devices, or even something very low tech like a spell board and a laminated spell board or a PEC system. You may need an ASL or sign language interpreter or communication partner. All of these things can be paid for through the self-determination program. So I want you to think about that. You should know my son does speak. However, he's what you would call unreliably speaking. Like you can't always get out. He can't always say what it is he's thinking and feeling, particularly when he's under stress. And so we put in Josh's spending plan something about communication training. And so it is by a speech and language therapist, but it is not speech therapy in any sense of the word. It is not speech therapy. And it's just for a short period of time. It's not an every single week thing, but just a short amount of consultation with a person who specializes in people who are non-speaking, minimally speaking, or unreliably speaking, to help them use devices to be able to get out what it is that they're trying to communicate to us. So that's an idea. Or you might need a device for seeing, reading, or hearing. I know that we have on our meeting today, Howard McBroom, and I don't know if Howard wants to share what he purchased with his self-determination budget to help him hear better, but he's welcome to. Or you might want to hire a language interpreter. So let's say you speak only Spanish. You could hire for a very specific purpose a Spanish language interpreter to help you in a particular setting. Or to translate a document that you got from somewhere that's not, by the way, the regional center should be translating all of your documents into your language, but it may be another document that you want to get translated. So you can certainly use that too. Any other ideas for people for vision, hearing, or I don't know, Howard, if you're still on, and oh, it looks like Howard had to get off. But I can just tell you, because I was part of Howard's circle of support, that Howard was able to purchase some unbelievable newfangled hearing aids because he is deaf and in one ear and hard of hearing in the other, that actually linked to a smartphone and to his computer. So his entire life has changed. I mean, it's literally his entire life has changed because of these devices that he was unable to afford and that Medi-Cal would not pay for, or not even Medi-Cal, but Medicare wouldn't pay for him. And Tammy is saying Medic Alert and hearing aids have gotten covered, and we definitely know that with Howard. Sally, did you have an idea for this?
Yeah, I was told a regular cell phone is also a possibility because it has alarms and it talks to my daughter and reminds her of things.
Absolutely. Is Howard also got a smartphone paid for through, because he didn't even own a cell phone, and the reason he didn't own one was because he couldn't hear. And so now he has a cell phone that is a special cell phone that directly connects up to his hearing aid. But I also know that people could say that your cell phone is your communication device because you type and do an output on it. So yes, you can definitely do that. Terracell is saying that people have been able to put smartwatches and therapeutic play structures in their backyards. I know that for sure. I saw that approved in the last couple of weeks by a friend of mine, that she got a big play structure put in her backyard because her daughter is not going to be going back to school. As long as COVID's out there, she's not going back to school. She has underlying health issues. And so this is the only way for her to get exercise. And this is how they choose to spend their money. Elizabeth Cuevas, did you have an idea?
I'm trying to unmute, sorry.
Yeah.
I wanted to add that that we were paying out of pocket before self-determination for safety, like a GPS, one specifically called Angel Sense. And now with the self-determination, we can pay for it with the budget.
That's great.
So safety items for wandering, or my son also has epilepsy. I didn't add this, but I guess I could. He has like a special watch that alerts if he were to have a seizure, things like that. He really likes being in the pool, especially in the summer. So we added, I don't swim. My son usually has to wait till my husband gets home from work, especially if he works summer school or something like that. So we put in like a lifeguard, hiring someone to be a lifeguard. So especially because of the epilepsy, though he does have it a little bit more under control, I would still be in the pool, but at least somebody bigger and can get him if need be. So we put that in our budget just for someone.
I love it. Brilliant, 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 brilliant. So a couple of things also in the thing, we have another fabulous new intern named Vas, who is blind and is an expert in that community. And he is recommending that a Braille display or a Braille note taker are really useful for those who know Braille. We know that we have a lot of people in the developmental disability system who have a developmental disability as well as are blind or are deaf or are both deaf or are deaf blind. And so there's a whole lot of supports that they need that they will be able to access through the self-determination program. Terracell is also asking for me to address dental services where it's not covered for most adults on Medi-Cal, and that some individuals are asked to get denial letters, which is obviously not an option because there is no dental services for adults. I mean, this is where I must admit my ignorance. I can tell you that my son has gotten Medi-Cal to pay for, and my son as an adult has gotten Medi-Cal to pay for his dental stuff. And in fact, it was part of his, and then the regional center covered the parts that Medi-Cal didn't pay for. So my understanding was that in the budget this year, they were going to cut out the adult dental Medi-Cal because of COVID and all the dramatic cuts, but that it is still in there, at least for the time being. But please, somebody correct me. Lori Shepard, can you correct me? Because I may be totally wrong.
I would never correct you, Judy, but I will elaborate on your reply.
Okay, good.
So always, regional center will cover dental expenses. It doesn't have to be in your budget. It's considered a one-time thing. If it was in your previous 12 months, they zero it out at the bottom. So you go to your dentist, and preferably you go to a regional center covered dentist. They already know the process. They get the denial pretty quickly. They pass it on to regional center. Regional center usually has a person specifically for the dental stuff, and then they get it authorized that way. So you will still get that dental work coverage that you need outside of your budget.
Thank you. Very helpful. Yeah, I know that when we first registered with my son's dentist, who is a developmental dentist, his entire patient load are people with developmental disabilities. He just asked me for our service coordinator's name, and that's all I did. Like I've not been involved in any of it, and somehow it all gets paid. Even he went today actually to the dentist, and it's going to be outside the self-determination program. They're just going to bill and they're going to pay it, and it won't be part of the self-determination program. Eunice, real quick.
Yeah, real quick. That's kind of confusing because the dental was paid for Jasmine by the regional center, and is on her spending plan, and it's $1,400 and some dollars. And I was thinking in putting it on when we do the self-determination. So Did I have to put it there because it was authorized last year? Or, and the year before, they've been authorizing it because she goes to UCLA, and the doctors go there, and then they do the procedure for Jasmine.
Right.
And I was thinking that that's part of the spending plan of I just received that paper.
Right. So I guess different regional centers are doing it differently. At Westside Regional Center, they take it out of your spending plan and tell you that if you need dental care, they will just pay for it outside of the spending plan. So if it's part of your spending plan, you might want to reserve. If you think that your granddaughter is going to need it again, I would definitely budget for it.
Yes, because it's said that it's every year. I mean, it's once a year that the doctors see her, because
so just make
they
sure
had
you're
to put her
for it. For
See,
sure.
they had to put her to sleep to do the work.
Yeah, a lot happens with a lot of people.
So is part of the spending plan, or is will it be part of the
it sounds like if they put it in your individual budget, it sounds like you'll need to have it as part of your spending plan. Yeah.
Yes. So we can add it when we do the self-center.
No. With the person-centered planning, it's not about your budget. It's so you talk about hopes and dreams in the person-centered plan, of which I can't imagine anybody in the world that their hopes and dreams are going to a dentist, even though I know, Harvey, you're a dentist, but even you would admit that. But you just want to make sure when you get into the spending plan piece that you put that.
No, I'm talking about are we going to add the dentist as part of our spending plan?
Yes, you should. Sounds like you should, because they put it in your individual budget. So yes.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Anne.
Just following up on the dental, what we were told is that the regional center will pay for John's dental services, which were about $1,400, my son, but we had actually put in about $5,000 because he does occasionally fall. We've lost teeth before, but we were told if we did not remove the entire amount from the plan, they would not pay that original $1,400. And I'm in the process of actually pushing back on that and saying, I can understand you taking that amount, but if we choose to keep a certain amount in the spending plan for dental work, what's the issue with that? I don't know what to say. They've never paid for it before. They only agreed to do it once self-determination came on, and I insisted on having it in his spending plan.
Yeah, it goes back to the same questions, like why are regional centers trying to nitpick in the plans? I mean, you see why they would have a debate about your individual budget amount, but once you've agreed and you have a certified budget, I really don't understand why they're spending such an effort to, you should know that we've been in a pilot for 20 years now. And none of the people who've been in the pilot have ever claimed that their spending plans have been nitpicked. So I'm not sure why we're doing things differently now. So I'm going to just keep on going just because I have a bunch more slides and it's past 6 o'clock already. And I know a lot of people have said they have other meetings tonight. And I'm actually supposed to be on another meeting too, but it doesn't matter that I'm a little late. Okay, education and planning. So I want you to think about, do you need an advocate? Like that's what David Oster was talking about. Maybe you need an advocate for your IEPs. Do you need support during after school care or an aid for extracurricular activities? Do you need any special equipment? Do you need help with organization and scheduling? This is something that a lot of people don't think about, that you may have a child who's in high school or college who has some executive functioning challenges. So you could hire a person to be their personal assistant to help keep them organized. We all could use a personal assistant. Do you need support if you're in higher education with note-taking or a tutor or physical living supports? These are things that self-determination can absolutely pay for. Other ideas on education. Now, remember with education, you do have to use generic resources when it comes to things like tutoring or when it comes to educational services. So just don't call it that. Remember, Don't call it that. Call it something else. All right. Okay, just a few more things on the brain. Socialization. Do you want assistance with making friends or dating or romantic relationships? Well, we have a friend who put a matchmaker in his plan because he wants to be in a romantic relationship. That is absolutely allowed. What type of support do you need if you are going into new environments? Does that stress you out? Do you need support with activities that you enjoy, such as being in a drum circle, or, this is obviously not during COVID, but, do you need support to go to a dance club or a bar or something where you're meeting other people in a safe environment after COVID? Or let's say you have special talents, like we're thinking about changing the spending plan at some point for my son to give him singing lessons because he sings all the freaking time. And half of the time it's off key. And so we're just trying to get it so he's 100% on key all the time. And he loves to sing. So we'll see if he wants to do it. We'll ask him. But dancing or art lessons or music lessons. I'm going to get to the last one and then ask people for comments. Mental health and wellness. So do you need a support, like a emotional support animal or a hypnotist? Or yoga or meditation, just ways to reduce your anxiety. There's lots of different things you can purchase. Do you need support with self-regulation or coping strategies? Some people call that behavioral therapy, but then when you call it behavioral therapy, the regional centers will ask you to spend to get generic resources. So don't call it behavioral therapy. Call it, help with coping strategies or something. Do you need a patient advocate for doctor's appointments?
No.
You need someone to go with you to those. So that's another idea as well. What we didn't even put in here, because I forgot to put this in, is employment. You can have somebody identify places for you to work. Be your like employment agent. You can have somebody be your support person at employment. You can have someone, my son wants to start his own business. So can you have somebody create a business plan, create a website, help you manage that business? All of those things can go in your spending plan. So the final thing I want to show you, and we're going to put all of this up on our website. We have a self-determination website called theinterchange.org. If Ed wouldn't mind putting that in the chat, but we will have all of these resources plus this slideshow on this website. But you can think about goal setting. What are your long-term goals? What are your short-term goals related to those long-term goals? Name the support you need. Who or what could help you achieve those goals? Estimate how much time it's going to take and how much each one will cost. And that's how you move it from just these ideas to actually being in your spending plan. Okay, so other ideas, I'm going to stop sharing so I can actually finally see everybody's face. Other ideas that
Hi, Lucy, you want something to drink?
Other ideas that people may have in those areas, or people may need to just get off because everybody seems to have a 6 o'clock meeting tonight. Seeing none, somebody is asking if you can request any of these services under participant directed services for those of you who are on the waiting list. So these kinds of creative out of the box things are a little bit harder, like a dance class or an art class cannot be paid for through participant direction. But what you can do is you can hire an individual to be the person's personal assistant, respite worker, employment coach, transportation provider. All of those things do come under participant direction. So if you're not in self-determination, I also encourage you to come on our webinar tomorrow, which will be from 2 to 4 p.m. on participant direction and other kinds of services you can use during the COVID shutdown outside of the self-determination program. And we really encourage you to be on that. You can find information on that by joining our mailing list. Most of you are probably on our mailing list. So if you are not, you can join our mailing list because Ed just put it in the chat by clicking on this link, tinyurl.com/join-dvu-mail. And Susie is saying that she asked for participant direction and is getting no response. I want you to be on the webinar tomorrow because we are having the head of the Association of Regional Centers on it, and I will give you the chance to ask that question of her because she thinks that because it's available, everybody's getting access to it. So yes, the webinar will be recorded and it will be available on our YouTube channel as well as on our coronavirus resources website. So seeing that it is 6:15, thank you for all joining us. This is going to be recorded and we will get this up on our website soon. I hope you guys have a great week. Wanted to let you know I will not be at the SDP Connect next week. We're attempting to take a tiny little vacation by going to Yosemite and staying away from other people, hopefully the entire time. And but you are going to be in good hands. Ed will be back, Nina will be back, and you will be the host of it will be one of our staff members, Suzanne Bennett Francisco, who is on her local advisory committee at San Andreas Regional Center. So thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow on our webinar or next week. Take care, everybody. Bye.